we're happy to take questions now. And then we have 3 questions that we would like you to discuss in your breakout groups, which we'll leave up on the screen at the end. And Kath will come in a minute and explain the arrangements for that the breakout groups do. But sure, yes, questions first.
My question is about whether an organisation would need some sort of badging or kite mark, or an organisation that delivers an awful lot of teaching out in the community and in schools and various other places, whether each of our individual dance practitioners would need to go through this in being badged up or kited up.
It's not impossible. We've worked on the basis that the majority of dance practitioners who teach are working across a number of different employers, and so at the moment we focus the framework towards the individual rather than the organisation, but I don't think that rules out the possibility that organisations could be a part of the register in a different searchable database. Do you want to add to that?
Just to repeat in a way, I think if you've got an idea that would be a useful thing, this is a kind of opportunity to say it. So if anybody else is sitting there thinking, oh yes, I'd like to register my organisation. But essentially, we have taken the view that a lot of people work across a number of different settings and organisations. So it's the individual is the main focus at the moment.
Hi there, it's Adam Holloway from Cheshire Dance. I've heard an awful lot today about our attempt to make more objective the various standards surrounding dance teaching. Could you just explain why in the previous slide you talked about only introducing fellows by invitation, so suddenly it was all subjective again?
Yeah, easy. Those lists are lists that we've drawn from what happens in other situations. So the Chartered Institute of Professional Personnel and Development have that as a category. So it's there. I mean, if you think it's of any use, we'd like to hear about that. If you think it's absolutely not, again. But I think within any profession, it's recognised, and that's what the others are doing, that there are certain people we all know and love and actually would almost vote for. I mean, we're not specifying how that might happen, but it's that sense of almost saying to somebody, you're a role model, you're a real leader in the field, and we recognise that. And is that something that would be useful within dance teaching is the question, really.
Hello, Penny Hargreaves. In the post-16 educational sector, anyone who wishes to be a lecturer or a teacher in any college has to be a member of the Institute for Learning. And I see many, many parallels, actually, in the model that you presented, and it would really create quite a smooth transition for dance practitioners or teachers or whatever, because it's, it is the same model. Or similar.
I just want to make a point. In the brief, we were looking at the informal sector, and we quickly established that wouldn't it be an ideal scenario if something could overarch everything? Whether other people feel quite like that in the formal sector, I don't know. But I think we need to start somewhere. And I'm delighted you're so enthusiastic, because that will come across in the feedback this afternoon. But initially it was to look at the informal sector, recognising what already exists in the formal sector. But of course, I suspect where it's most successful in any industry and sector is where it overarches the whole population, not just significant segments of it.
Hello, Jeanette Harrod, I'm Director of Community Dance Wales. And my question is whether there's any consideration being given, as this is a UK development, in terms of Scotland and Ireland and Wales specifically, where there is a bilingual element to consider, particularly now with the Welsh Assembly Government and the development of the Welsh Language Act, in terms of accreditation, assessment, qualifications through the medium of Welsh.
I can't remember who it was this morning, whether it was Maggie or Linda, but one of them brought up the reference to the European-wide aspect as well. And there is evidence in some of the other models that we've looked at where initially there have been either England or UK in their remits, but then they've expanded to go European-wide and beyond. Some things are helpful to that in terms of the development of qualifications. It would point us in that direction. So yes, we would, I suspect, maybe in terms of a phased approach, be looking at how this would roll out.
Alison Tompkins. It isn't really a question, it's just highlighting a possible issue. I have some friends who work outside of the dance world, and one of the things that they find in their professions is quality of CPD provision and the amount of CPD. So when they have to do 2 or 3 CPDs in a year, it's finding good quality training.
Yes, no, it's a good point. And when we were examining some of the models in other sectors, it was clear that some had much more evolved CPD structures than others. And the degree of endorsement they offered as a body to training providers, in some cases, was very specific. Licenses were issued and fees charged, whereas others were a little bit more loose. I mean, in the same respect, there was also interesting ways in which CPD was geared in terms of the amount of credits or points which need to be accumulated so that it wasn't draconian at the outset, whereby people were not discouraged from joining a register by the thought of having to spend a lot of money constantly going on CPD courses. You know, there was mechanisms put in place to, you know, try and address that. So that is something I think would be key to look at.
Just to add very briefly as well, I think there's also some work to do about how CPD is defined, because actually this afternoon is CPD, today has been CPD, and we all do a lot of those things, but we don't necessarily reflect on it. So sometimes I think there's activities that already exist that people are doing that can be slightly reformulated to constitute a CPD element. So I think there's quite a lot of work can be done on that area.